So we've got a bit of a problem with our shower tray. If we go into the shower room here, we've got the sink, the toilet, and then around here on the right of the shower. And McClue decided that, and they're probably right, a lot of people wouldn't want to have to clean and dry the shower tray after the shower before they can use the sink, because you have to stand there to use the sink. So what they did was they provided this duckboard, and that allows you to just stand here, use the sink without having to clean and dry the shower tray. Kind of makes sense. But let's have a little look at this duckboard, shall we? That's the underneath, and it's got 6 little feet on it. And those 6 little feet focus all the weight into tiny little points. And yeah, of course, all that weight being focused onto tiny little points cranks the shower tray. So then you've got loads of water flowing down into the cavity underneath that shower tray, whatever that cavity is, sitting there, rotting, smelling, and causing all sorts of damage. So well done, McClue. Brilliant. If only they'd made those feet longer so they spread the load out, then that would have been a good solution. But in fact, what they've shipped with the van is a device for damaging the van. So we're going to get that shower tray lined. To get it replaced is very expensive. To get it lined or coated is also expensive, but a lot less expensive. But I'm just going to show you my temporary fix before we show you the fix. So the temporary fix is just a little bit of insulating tape cut to length and stuck down over the crack. There we are, stuck in place over the crack. And I haven't been down into the cavity to inspect because I don't know how to do that, but I think short term that will stop the water getting down the crack. And in fact that was recommended by the specialist who's going to apply the new coat on the shower tray. He said Gorilla Tape, but I don't think it'll make much difference, and insulating tape is a little bit easier to handle and put in place. So there we are, that's the temporary fix, and later on we'll show you the proper complete fix when that's done.
So we called in Speedcoat and they recoated the shower tray. How much did they quote you to do it?
Well, they have different prices depending on whether they are coming out to you. Like their mobile price is higher than their in situ in their facilities price.
Right.
And the original price was, I think it was 425 including VAT all in.
That's pretty good, yeah.
For the mobile service.
Right, yeah,
so that
cool.
includes him travelling and all that. And he was here for a couple of hours doing the job, wasn't he?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It's a specialist thing, it's a skilled thing. Not anybody could do it. I mean, technically you could try it yourself, but it's one of those things like plastering. First time you do it, you're going to be rubbish.
Yeah, that's true.
And this is the repair with the coating, which the fella's just sprayed on. And that's got to be left for 24 to 48 hours to cure. He filled the crack and he screwed the shower tray down to the support underneath it. He called it pinning, pinned it down. And that'll repair the surface so it won't leak.
It's a very strong solvent smell, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah.
And he was here about 2.5 hours?
2.5 hours, and most of that was masking off the whole, well, pretty much all of the van. Just putting up sheets and taping the sheets in to mask off all the areas that you didn't want to spray.
So once it was dry, you made some supports up.
I did.
How did you do it and what did you do?
Well, so the corners of the shower tray were bending. They were clearly unsupported, and that's not good structurally. That's going to lead to cracking and bending and creaking and all that. And there was a void underneath the shower tray. There was a support under the shower tray, but it just wasn't strong enough, and it had no support in the corners. And the crucial thing was that the base of that void was strong, because I tested it. It wasn't soft. It was a strong base. So I figured, well, if I put a strut in between that bottom and the top, that's going to give the top a bit of support. So I got a little bit of wood that was too small, too weedy, and used that and cut it to length to get the length right. So that was my length guide. And then once I had that, then I took the actual bits of wood that I was going to use for the support and cut them to the same length and tried to fit them in underneath. They wouldn't fit underneath because when you put them in, you have to put them in at an angle. I put them in that way, and they wouldn't go in because they were too long, because of the distance from corner to corner is bigger than the length.
Right.
So I shaved off the corner so that I could actually push them into position. And once I'd fitted them, and I was sure they'd fit and they were right size, I took them out again, put epoxy resin on both ends and stuck them in.
It's really secure in there now.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they'd done the coating, the plug holes weren't in the plug hole spaces. How did you put that back in?
Well, he said, you'll need a little hook like this, and he showed me this very specialised bespoke tool that you can't buy. And I thought, okay. So I got a bit of coat hanger wire and bent it. No, I didn't. I cut it, put the end of the coat hanger on a vise and hit it with a hammer to flatten it, to make it into like a pick. And then once it was the right shape, then I bent it so that I could actually get in and hook up the thing that you need to hook up to pull it up. But it still wasn't fitting in, and it still wasn't getting a great grip. So eventually I realised you don't need to do that at all. You can just get a bent bit of wire and put it in the outlet pipe and pull it up on that instead.
Oh, right.
It was a lot easier, very easy.
So I was going to say, that sounded a bit like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance again, where you can make something
Your
like
own thing is better than the made to.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, yeah, in a way. I mean, yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, maybe I misunderstood what he was saying. He had a very pointy hook that he seemed to be hooking the central piece of the drain with.
Yeah.
And when I tried to do that, it was very difficult. But if you just get a bent bit of wire and stick it in the output wire, it works better and is a lot easier.
What do you think about the finish?
It would be nice if it was a bit smoother. It'd be nice if it was more resistant to chemicals like bleach and dye. So we do have to bear in mind now, don't use bleach and don't allow dyes to come into contact with it. But other than that, I think it's fine, and it cleans easy enough. I've cleaned it a couple of times now and it cleans easily.
And it's not leaking.
And it's not leaking, and it's got a 10-year warranty, so even if it does start to leak, it'll get fixed.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That gives you peace of mind, doesn't it? You know. So there was another job that you had to do in there. You put some sealant around the edge.
Yeah. The guy who came to put the coating on the shower tray, when he left, he said, when they made this van, they didn't bother to seal between the shower tray and the floor. See that? He called it a black line. It was a gap. It wasn't a black line, it was a gap. And that gap, you can get water go in there, and then the water then gets into the floor material and starts to swell up, and it can start to rot and go horrible and damp. So yeah, he's quite right. It should have sealant on there. And he said, it's really easy to do, really easy. You just get a cartridge gun and some sealant, squirt it along there, and run your finger along it, easy as that. It's never that easy. Putting sealant in is one of those jobs that you have to get the knack of and practice. For a start, most people would say, don't just do it with your finger, do it with a wet finger. Makes it a little bit easier. So anyway, I've done this a few times, I know. So I thought, well, okay, I can do that. So I got the cartridge gun, bought some new sealant, some silicone sealant, put a bead down, a bowl of water, got my finger wet, ran my finger around it to clean it off, and it looked absolutely awful, really terrible. Because when you put white sealant in between white tiles and a white bath edge or shower tray or whatever, you get a feathering to the edge of that sealant, which you can't see because it's white on white, so it's fine. The floor in there is a light wood colour, brown, beach or whatever. So that feathering between the white sealant and the beach coloured flooring just looks horrible. So I tried it 2 or 3 times before I realised, no, I'm not going to get that right. It's always going to look horrible. And then I fell back on the old trick of putting down a bit of tape, a set distance from the join. And I use insulating tape, but probably masking tape would work just as well. Push it down well so that it's adhered to the floor. Put down the bead, wet finger, run it along. Try and get a nice, still tricky to get a nice, smooth, clean, continuous thickness and whatever. But once you've got that right, just peel the tape up and you get a lovely, clean, sharp edge all the way around.
Perfect. So would you recommend Speedcoat?
I would.
Yeah.
Yes, I would. You do have to be able to get down on your knees and work to fish up your drain housing from underneath to reattach the little metal grill that screws down on top. You have to be able to do that. You need to leave it really, he said for 48 hours, but I think really for a week because there's so much vapour and gases and fumes come off it. I think if you're sleeping in the van 3 or 4 days later, you might suffer from that a bit. So yeah, leave it for a week afterwards. But so far so good. It's not leaking and it looks strong and intact, and it's got a 10-year warranty.